वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय सूत उवाच अथ तं सुखम् आसीन उपासीनं वृष्वाः देवश्री प्राह विप्रसिं वीणा पानी समन्यव भगवती माता she just joined now.
Yes, she's just joined. Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna, Bhagavati Mataji. If you can please start with the translation. Yes.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you.
Verse 1.
I do the translation, yeah? Okay.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
If someone did the Sanskrit already?
Yes, I've done it.
Okay. Perfect.
Verse 1.
So, have you done text 1, yeah? Text 1.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but just one.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity today. I'm going for the translation of text 1. Sutta Goswami said, "Thus the sage among the gods, which is Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the Brahmanas, which is Vedyavasa.
Narad uvacha parasarya mahabhag bhauta kachi atmana paritushyati sharira atma manasa devata."
Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parashara, Narada inquired, "Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization?"
Text 3. Jignasitam sushifanam apite mad adbhutam krutvan bharatam yastvam sarvata paribhumitam.
Your inquiries were full and your studies were also well fulfilled, and there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained.
Jignasitam aditam cha brahma yat sanatanam tathapi sochya atmanam akrutata iva prabhu.
You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu?
Vyasa uvacha asti eva me sarvam idam tavyaktam tathapi natma paritushyate me tanmulam avyaktam agadbodham prachamaye tvatma bhavatma bhutam.
Sri Vyasadeva said, "All you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I'm not satisfied. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction, for you are a man of unlimited knowledge, due to your being the offspring of one, Brahma, who is self-born without mundane father and mother."
Save bhavan veda samasguyam upasito yat purusha puranah paravaresho manaseva vishvam shujat kvati atigune asangah.
My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature.
Tam paryo tana narka iva trilokim antascharo vayu ivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vriteya sanatasya me nyunam alam vikshava.
Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive Supersoul. Please, therefore, find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows.
श्रीनारद उवाच भवातानुदितपरायं यशो भगवतो मलं विना वासो न तुष्यते मन्ये तद्दर्शनमखिलम्.
Sri Narad said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless."
यथा धर्मादयश्चार्था मुनिवैनानुकीर्तितः न तार्था वासुदेवस्य महिमा हि अनुवर्णितः.
Although, great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles beginning with religious performances, you have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva.
न यद्वचश्चित्रपदं हरे यशो जगत् पवित्रं प्रगृहीता कर्हिचित् तद्वासं तीर्थम् उष्णति मानसा न यत्र हंसा निर्मन्ति विशिक्षयाः.
Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly person to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crowds. Since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
तद्वाक् विसर्गो जनाताग विप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रति श्लोकम् अबध्वति अपि नामानि अनन्तस्य यशो न कितानि यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः.
On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest.
निष्कर्मेयमपि अच्युतभाववर्जितं न शोभते ज्ञानम् अलं निराञ्जनं कुतः पुनः सस्वद् अभद्रम् ईश्वरे न चार्पितं कर्म यदपि अकारणम्.
Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transcend by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord?
अथोमा भाग भवान् अमोघ्रुक् शुचिश्रवा सत्यरतो दुतव्रतः गुरु कर्म शाखिल बंध मुक्तये समाधीनानुस्मरण सद्विच्चे स्थितम्.
O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness, and thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage.
ततो ज्ञाता किंचन यद् विवक्षतः पृथक् दर्श तथा कृता रूपा नामभिः न कश्चित् पापीश्च दुस्थिता मुक्ति लप्ते हिताहता नो विवास्पदम्.
Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place.
जुगुप्सितं धर्मकृते निशासतः स्वभाव रक्तस्य मानधाति कर्मः यद्व्याख्यो धर्म इति तरः स्थितो न मन्यते तस्य निवारणं जनः.
The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions.
विचक्षणोऽशार्हति वेदितं विभो अनन्तपारस्य निवर्तित सुखं पवतमानस्य गुणे अनात्मनस्ततो भवान् दर्शय ते स्थितं विभोः.
The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization. By your goodness, through this descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord.
त्यक्त्वा स धर्मं चरानं भुजं हरे भजन त्व तत्पथे ततो यदि यत्र वा भद्रम् अभूत् अमोष्य किं को वाथा आप्तो भजतां स धर्मतः.
One who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything.
तस्यैवे हेतो पयतेतो कोविदो न लभ्यते यद् प्रमात्मम् उपरि वदः तल्लभ्यते दुःखवद् अन्यत् सुखं कालेन सर्वत्र गभीरं हस.
Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them.
न वै जानो जातो कथाञ्चन व्रजेन् मुकुन्द स्वे सेव्यवद् अङ्ग समश्रुतं स्मरण मुकुन्द गृही उपागुहनं पुनर् विहातुम् इच्छेन्न रसगृहो जनः.
My dear Vyas, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down, somehow or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, which is fruity workers, etc. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again.
इदाभि विश्वं भगवान् इवेतरो यतो जगत्स्थान निरोध संभवा तद्धि स्वयं वेद भवां तथापि ते प्रादेश मात्रं भवत प्रदर्शितम्. Hare Krishna.
Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead is himself this cosmos and still he is aloof from it. From him only has this cosmic manifestation emanated. In him it rests and unto him it enters after annihilation. Your good self known all about this, I have given only a synopsis. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you very much for wonderful recitations, English and Sanskrit. We shall start. We shall be reading verse number 12 of chapter 5 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Eva Narottam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shama Kirtanaha हृदयन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विदिनोति सुहृत्सताम् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse number 12. Naishkarmyam api achyut bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanamalam niranjanam utah punah shashvat abhaddaram ishware na charpitam karma yade api akaranam. Naishkarmyam api achyut bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanam malam niranjanam utah punah shashvat abhadram ishware nacha arpitam karma yad api akaranam. Naishkarmyam api achyut bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanam malam nirjanam utah punah shashvat abhadram ishware nacha arpitam karma yadapyakaranam. Synonyms. Nashkarmam, self-realization, being freed from the reactions of fruitive work. In spite of Api, Achyuta, infallible Lord. Bhava, conception. Varjitam, devoid of. Na, does not. Shobhate, look well. Jnanam, transcendental knowledge. Alam, by and by. Niranjanam, free from designations. Kutaha, where is. Punah, again. Sashvat, always. Abhadram, uncongenial. Ishware, unto the Lord. Na, not. Cha, and. Arpitam, offered. Karma, fruitive work. Yatapi, what is. Akaranam, not fruitive. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of the conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? Purport, as referred to above, not only ordinary literatures devoid of the transcendental glorification of the Lord are condemned, but also Vedic literatures and speculation on the subject of impersonal Brahman when they are devoid of devotional service. When speculation on the impersonal Brahman is condemned on the above ground, then what to speak of ordinary fruitive work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of devotional service? Such speculative knowledge and fruitive work cannot lead one to the goal of perfection. Fruitive work, in which almost all people in general are engaged, is always painful, either in the beginning or at the end. It can be fruitful only when made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita also it is confirmed, result of such fruitive work may be offered for the service of the Lord. Otherwise, it leads to material bondage. The bona fide enjoyer of the fruitive work is the personality of Godhead. And thus, when it is engaged for the sense gratification of living beings, it becomes an acute source of trouble. Om Agyanam Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manovistham Jena Bhutale Swayam Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnava Shri Rupam
Sarvyatam
Sagvijataam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna
Karuna Sindhu
Dinabandhu Jagatapate
Jagatpate
Gopesha Gopika Kanta
Gopikanta
Radha Kanta
Namastute
Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe
Vrindavaneshwari
Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanu Sute
Vishvanu
Devi
Pranamami
Pranamami
Hari Priye
Vanchakalpa
Vanchakalpa
Yascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu
Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri
Shri
Advaita
Advaita Gadadhar
Gadadhara Shivasadi
Srivasadi
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare
Hare Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama
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 Rama Rama
Rama
Hare
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 Hare Nashkarmyam apyachyat bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanamalam niranjanam utah punah shashwat abhadram ishware na cha arpitam karma yadi apik akaranam. So we have reached to chapter 5, gradually every single day, reading one verse, and we have come this far. Here we understand in this chapter, Devarishi Narad, the transcendental traveler and the transcendental personality, is appearing before Vyasdev. Vyasdev is literally incarnation of personality of Godhead who has appeared in this particular yuga. Otherwise, this post is given to other jivas. And he has written all sorts of literature, and he wasn't very satisfied. He wasn't very satisfied. At that point in time, Srila Naradev, when Vyasdev inquired from Naradji, Naradev then figured out and gave the diagnosis that look, there are two kinds of defects that I have found in the work that you have produced so far. The first defect is that you have not glorified the Lord directly. You have not glorified the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, directly. And secondly, you have given too much of emphasis on the four kinds of Purushartha: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Now this Moksha, you can see here, it says, Nashkarmamya api achyuta bhava. Self-realization freed from the reactions of fruitive works. So what is this moksha? Moksha is nothing but I do not want distress in my life. Nobody wants. Nobody wants. Everybody is wanting to feel happy, seek happiness. Seek happiness. But they come to the point, they start to say that they get so much distressed that they want to come to a position of, I don't want to work, I don't want any karmic reaction. If I work, then I get karmic reaction, you see. And these karmic reactions are all of kinds. Sometimes I have to come to enjoy the results of the karmic reaction, and other times I have to come to suffer the reactions of the karmas. It's best that I kind of become happy in the state of consciousness, just like sleepiness. Many people who are in tamogun, they would take drugs, alcohol, and trying to go into a state of some sort of indolence where they do not know who they are, what they are doing, and they kind of forget their distress temporarily. But as soon as they come back to the consciousness, they can see and nothing has gone away. Everything is standing before them and they have to face it. Again, they try to do these kind of temporary measures. But then there are those who become slightly prudent and they think that, okay, we need to know there's more to life. We need to find out something more than what we are experiencing. And they try to come in the mode of goodness, from mode of passion to mode of goodness. And they kind of seek the knowledge. They seek the knowledge that who am I? Who is God? What is our relationship? Is that the reason I'm suffering? How can I get back to him? But they also, unfortunately, sometimes or many times are not able to get to the full conception of the Godhead. They come up to the conclusion that there is some source of energy that exists, and somehow or the other, if I just merge into that energy, Brahmeti, Paramateti, Bhagavaniti Shabdati, it's all the same, but there are different sorts of realizations. It's not the personal realization of God, it's just the energy realization of God, energy of the energetic, the Supreme Personality. So they think energy is actually everything. They're unable to reach beyond the point of energy. And they think that I must go and merge into the transcendence. For devotees, it is considered to be spiritual suicide, because they want to be with the Lord, they want to interact with the Lord, they want to feel the mallows of the personality of Godhead. But these people, unfortunately, because of the lack of association, lack of knowledge, lack of mercy of pure devotees, come to the conclusion that Brahma Jyoti is the moksha. If I somehow or the other come to the point of self-realization, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati. One who has achieved self-realization, Brahma Bhuta, he becomes happy, Prasannatma. He does not lament for the past, nor he is desiring anything in the future. So there's no anxiety of the future. Na sochati na kankshati. So they want to reach this point of thoughtlessness, sort of a state of considering themselves to be perhaps non-existing, sort of merging into God, and then feel sometimes nothingness, sometimes some sort of bliss which cannot be expressed. There's no reciprocation. There's some sort of dormancy. There's no activity. And then in that state of bliss, I can always exist. That is this word, just that we have spoken about, is nashkarmamyam. Self-realization, being freed from the reactions of fruitive work. This is the self-realization. I'm soul, and I can go towards realization of God, but in a half-baked way. And what's the next line is, in spite of infallible Lord. So they are not able to see the conception of Godhead. So this verse is saying, what's then the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning? So even the Shastra is deriding the fact that even the Brahman realization is not good enough. It does not look well if it is devoid of the conception of Achyuta, the infallible one. If there's no God in this, there's no rasa. There's some sort of happiness, but where is that higher realization of God? So now Shastra is saying, so he's giving a comparison. Even if you are aiming to go to the realization of God and self in the lowest form, that is not good enough. Then what to talk about chasing the results for the sense pleasure, which are transient in nature and which ultimately leads to misery. There's nothing else but misery in that chase. And one can say, no, I'm very happy. Oh, Baba, you will one day die. And misery of death is so difficult. Misery of old age, disease, birth. So all these are classified as the permanent miseries of this. They're assets of this material world. They're attributes, qualities of this material world. That is how material world is defined. That is the description of the material world. Material world is not defined as Sat Chit Anand. It's not defined as where there is eternity, where there is all knowledge, where there is bliss. It is defined as the Khalayam Shashwadam. It's very temporary and it's full of misery. Now, those people, living entities who are caught up in this cycle of chasing the results to fulfill the insatiable desires produced by the concoctment of the mind are condemned in this verse. Kuttaha punah, it says, Kuttaha punah, whereas Sashwat Abhadram Ishware, naturally, Nacha arpitam karma yadapi akaranam. If these fruitive activities, why fruitive activities? Because there's a result that people are chasing, therefore they're called fruitive. There's an activity which is done for a purpose, for a goal, passionately. That is what everybody is talking about. You must have a goal to achieve. And when you must achieve, have another goal to achieve. Set higher targets, higher goals. All that makes sense only if it is done for pleasing the spiritual, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It says clearly here.
That
If these
list is a very
terms are not utilized for the service of the Lord,
I don't know where she got it from. She just sent it to me, and I didn't realize. That's why I sent it to you straight away.
Yeah, no. Those, all times used to have a lot of people, but we don't need so many people now. And over the time, they've dropped out,
okay. Nacha arpitam karma yadapi akaranam. So we have to ensure that we give our activities not with the desire of enjoying the results, but with the desire to serve the Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here that every single activity is meant for Rasaraj, the enjoyer of all the rasas, Krishna himself. Nothing is meant for anybody else. So therefore, those who are trying to enjoy the fruitive work, they are simply binding themselves in the cage of the chains of material nature. Those who are simply acting to fulfill their own desires. I want to go to this university. I want to do this job. I want to make this house. I want to go holiday here. I want to wear these kind of clothes. I want to eat this kind of food. Anything to do with the satisfaction of the senses, which is being done purely for that purpose. is condemned here. It has to be done in relationship with the Lord. Therefore, it is saying here, dovetailed in the service of the Lord. It says the bona fide enjoyer of the fruitive work is the personality of Godhead, and thus when it is engaged for the sense gratification of the living being, it becomes an acute source of trouble. Acute source of trouble. It's in Chaitanya Chaitamrita, there's a mention, Sarvapadi Vinurmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam. One should leave all kinds of designation and engage all our senses in the service of the Lord. And this way, when the spirit soul renders service into the Lord, there are two types of side effects. Side effects generally are taken as negative, but these are positive. They just come naturally as a byproduct of devotional service. You become free from all kinds of material designations. What are these designations? I'm this body, I'm this person, I'm this, belong to this nation, I'm so and so. It's very, very acute identities that we are living with. In certain cases, if these identities are taken away from us, for example, if a wealthy person suddenly becomes poor, if a person who is well-paid job, he suddenly haven't got any job, his identity is kind of snatched away from him. And then they go into depression. Who am I? What is the purpose of life? What am I doing here? I should be so and so, but I'm not that anymore. So he's not able to face the society. Their identity is pulled from their feet. And because they are identifying themselves with the false temporary identities, these things can happen more than often. Whereas the permanent identity is that I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. That's the permanent identity. When the spirit soul renders service into the Supreme, there are two side effects. So one is freed from all material designations. One understands that I'm the spirit soul and I am the subservient to the Lord. I am the lover of Lord. All my activities are to please the Lord. And one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So all the senses which are really like snakes looking for engagements, they become peaceful. You become very satisfied. But this is the result of the devotional service. These two side effects will come. One, you will forget your identity, which is false, and reinstate yourself in the original identity. Second, the senses will become purified. And which is the most important sense in our body, which is mind. Impure mind will become pure mind. Impure mind thinks I want to enjoy my senses. Pure mind thinks that I want to give enjoyment to the senses of Krishna. And that transition will happen gradually but surely. Day by day, week by week, year after year, when we continue to chant and continue to serve the Lord and his devotees, this transition is bound to happen. From impure mind to pure mind, it will cover that distance, it will cover that journey. So I was recalling that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not write himself much of the scriptures, but he empowered Srila Rupa Goswami. And he did so by his personal presence and by embracing Rupa Goswami. In Prayag, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent 10 days. This pastime is mentioned in Madhya Lila Chaitanya Chaitamrita, chapter 19. So, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Srila Rupa Goswami, he imparted him the most confidential knowledge. And this is the knowledge which was yet missing in the descriptions of Srila Vyasadev's literature. It was all about karma, dharma. Dharma, you do dharma because dharma, artha, kama, moksha. By following your dharma, you'll get artha, the facilities to enjoy. And karma, you will be satisfying that. Once you're frustrated, then you can seek liberation, moksha. It's simple. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But here, something else is being described. Pure devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Srila Rupa Goswami that it is certainly not possible to describe devotional service completely. Even the Lord himself is finding it difficult to put into words the mallows of the devotional service, because it is something to be experienced by going through the process. I was reading this quote today: to shine so brightly, sun has to burn first. Similarly, experience the devotional mallows. One has to go through the process of bhakti. Then one can reach to the conclusions and experience them, but they're difficult to define, to put words to them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the ocean of transcendental mallows of bhakti is so big that no one can estimate its length and breadth. However, just to help you taste it, I am describing just one drop. So I just go through some of the verses here. This particular verse is saying, even out of many millions of wise men, one may actually become liberated. And out of many millions of such liberated persons, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna is very difficult to find. So fortunate we are to have Srila Prabhupada between us, who has come to deliver us from these miseries of birth, death, and old age, because it's so rare to get the mercy of a pure devotee. Because a devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he's peaceful. Fruitive workers desire material enjoyment. Jnanis desire liberation. Yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. Please note these words. Fruitive workers, they desire material enjoyment. Jnanis, they desire liberation, which is moksha. And yogis, they want all the mystic powers, so material opulence. Therefore, they are lusty. Lusty means they want enjoyment for themselves. Because they want enjoyment about themselves, which is meant for Supreme Personality of Godhead, they cannot be peaceful. So, I'll just read, I'm just clicking through some nice verses here. So, yeah. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes how the seed of devotional service is sown in the heart and it grows in the form of creeper. How one should avoid any sorts of offenses, specifically offense to the Vaishnavas, to protect the bhakti creeper. Otherwise, it will be destroyed by the mad elephant offense. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on saying, when one is situated in pure devotional service, he develops love of Godhead. Therefore, now let me describe some of the symptoms of pure devotional service. When one first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. That's one. Second, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, which means that I am one with the God, and fruitive action, the third. So all these three are again derived here, because pure devotional service is beyond that. Devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably, as Krishna desires, not as we desire, but as Krishna desires. Now, this verse is quite nice. Anabhilashita shunyam Jnana karmadhyana vritam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhaktirottama. So this is very, very important verse that actually appears in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. That's where it appears. It's a beautiful verse. Prabhupada has often quoted this verse to emphasize on how pure devotion service is free from all other desires, devoid of material desires, devoid of acquiring knowledge to become monastic, and devoid of any knowledge which desires fruitive action. What is the devotee's business? Constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. So this verse kind of sums up the entire devotional service. Now, let's see what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says further. A pure devotee must not cherish any desire other than to serve Krishna. He should not offer worship to the demigods or to mundane personalities. He should not cultivate artificial knowledge, which is devoid of Krishna consciousness, and he should not engage himself in anything other than Krishna conscious activities. One must engage all one's purified senses in the service of the Lord. This is the favorable execution of Krishna conscious activities. These activities are called Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotional service. If one renders such pure devotional service, he develops his original love for Krishna in due course of time. In Vedic literatures like Pancharatras and Srimad Bhagavatam, these symptoms are described. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto Supreme, there are two side effects. We just read that. One is freed from all material designation, and one's senses are purified. Sarupadhi vinur muktam tatparatrena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. That is the best type of bhakti. This is what is described here. Then very proudly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is repeating this verse. My devotees do not accept Shalukya, Sharishti, Sarupya, Samipya, or oneness with me, even if I offer these liberations in preference to serving me. So, Shalukya, Sharishti, Samipya, Sarupya, Katam apyutta, Diyamanam na grahananti, vina matsevanam gyanaha. In trading against service to me, my devotees would not accept any of this liberation. And these are very high level of liberations, Oneness is derided, but Samipya, Sarupya, Sarishti, Salokya is not condemned, but still, just like Kola Shekhar, what was the name? Anyway, when the Mahaprakash Leela was going on, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked this devotee that, what would you like? All he said that, please come again and again and steal my banana leaves. This is what I want, nothing else. I don't want anything else. Kolavecha Shekhar, right? Sridhar, Kolavecha Sridhar, that was the name. So Kolavecha Sridhar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go and haggle him every single day for some annas. And he was very, very, very simple devotee. He would often tell the truth that this is how much it must cost. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will just make it 50% of that and say, this is what I will offer you. And sometimes he'll haggle him so much, and sometimes he'll say, I'll just take it for free. He used to wait all night. He used to chant all night. People used to think outside of his head that, oh, he's crying out of hunger. But Kolavecha Sridhar, he was constantly in remembrance of the Lord. He used to wait when the morning will come, when his Lord will come. He used to give 50% of his income in worshipping Mother Ganga. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and tease him that you are worshipper of Ganga, therefore you're so poor. Ganga, you're worshipping Ganga Devi. So why don't you worship Lakshmi Devi? Anyway, well, his pure devotion was there, his pure devotion. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him during Mahaprakash Leela that, Sridhar, please ask any benediction that you want. I'm willing to give you any mukti. All he said that life after life, please come and steal my leaves and haggle with me as you have been doing. Because there is nothing more relishing than this mellow. You see, who will understand this transcendental pastime between the devotees and the Lord? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further says, by rendering devotional service to Supreme, one transcends the modes of material nature, attains a spiritual perfection in the spiritual perfection while living in the material world. Material desire to enjoy the material world and desire to become liberated from material bondage are considered to be two witches. They haunt one like ghosts. As long as these witches remain within the heart, how can one feel the transcendental bliss? So it is to be understood, devotees, and for myself, that if we have these material desires in our heart, we will never be able to relish the transcendental mallows of devotional service. And if we have the desire to become one with the Lord, they are compared to witches and ghosts because they take the soul from one place to another, like the ghost haunted body is being taken by the ghost from one place to another. Similarly, the desires of material enjoyment does that with the living entity. So it says, by regularly rendering devotional service, one gradually becomes attached to the Supreme Godhead. And that attachment is intensified, it becomes love of God. I was hearing this lecture by Srila Prabhupada this morning. It says, our goal of spiritual life is to increase our attachment to Krishna. If we are able to increase our attachment to Krishna, and therefore we should transfer all our fruits to Krishna because we are attached to the fruits of our karma. If we transfer our fruits to Krishna, our attachment will also get transferred to Krishna. Very esoteric, practical also. So these are the glories of devotional service, which were not addressed, and rightly so. Therefore, Narad Muni says to Vyasdev that you have done all the literature, you have given overemphasis on 4 Purusharthas, and you have done insufficient glorification of the Lord, and therefore you're not feeling very satisfied in your heart. And we see how in the next few verses he will emphasize on the glories of bhakti and how he'll establish that bhakti is permanent. He will establish that there is nothing lost in the process of devotional service, whereas in the material endeavors, everything is lost by the loss of the body. So with this, I'll close this session here. If there are any comments, if there are any questions, we can do that now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And I again want to thank Krishnangi Mataji and Bhagwati Devi Mataji and seek their blessings. And I thank you for their wonderful recitation. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, I didn't get unmuted. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for wonderful class. Then with pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, you just little bit explain a little bit what is liberation? What does liberation means?
So right now the soul is not liberated. Means soul is caged or bound in this body. The soul is bound in the jail of the body. So he's not liberated. He's kind of fixed in a jail of the desires of the mind These desires are keeping the soul into one body or the other body, sometimes animal bodies, sometimes living entities of human body. Therefore, it is not liberated. It is bound by the limitation of the body and the laws governing the nature, laws of nature. If he does something wrong, he'll get a karmic reaction. Does something right, he'll get some kind of good points, credits to his pious activities. Therefore, he's caged. He's not liberated. He's bound by three modes of material nature. Tamogun, Rajogun, Satogun. If he's in Satgun, he feels happy. If he's Rajogun, he feels unsatisfied. If he's in Tamogun, he feels unhappy. So like this, these gunas, material modes of nature, they are binding the soul in the body and keeping him there. He is not liberated. Once the soul gets free from these three modes of material nature, which is Satgun, Rajogun, Tamogun, then he also gets freed eventually from the cage of this body. He achieves some sort of freedom, freedom to express. Now, this freedom, which is called moksha or liberation, are of three kinds. One is Brahmeti, you realize Lord as Brahman and you merge into Brahman. That is one kind of liberation. But that is liberation devotees don't want, as we heard in the lecture. And then there are two others where bhakti is the topmost, where you worship and serve the Lord himself. Does that make it clear?
Hare Krishna, maybe a little bit, because we hear in lectures and in other classes that devotees don't ask for liberation; they ask for pure devotional service. So I am always confused between the liberation and devotion. Even now, Prabhuji, you said when we are asking for liberation, there's three kinds of liberation. So does that devotional service, this liberation is leading to devotional service or devotional service leading to liberation?
Liberation is a common term. And in our parampara, mostly liberation term is used when somebody wants to get merged with God. And
Okay,
energy.
that's
wherever you'll find this word liberation, it means its connotation is that you want to merge with the God.
Okay. So
and wherever you find devotional service, you do not want to merge in the God, but you want to serve one-to-one with God. And that is what is love of God. Yeah.
I understand now. Thank you very much. Okay. Very, very nice explanation. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for a nice class. I have this question from this purport, which says, it can be fruitful only when made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. So the two questions. So what is subservient? How can we do subservient? And the second part, because in a grahastha ashram, what if one family member is only in the devotional service and the whole other family is not engaged in devotional service? How can actually we use all our material attachments in service of the Lord?
Right. So I think your answer to the first is in your question number 2. When we utilize all our activities in the service of the Lord, that is called subservient to the Lord. So whatever activity we do, but we are conscious that we want to do it to please the Lord, then that is a devotional service, and that could be subservient to the Lord. You're cooking, but you're cooking for Krishna, and then that is a devotional service because that's subservient. Now that's not just for yourself. There are many consciousness of cooking. One could be cooking to offer food to Prasad, to Krishna, and then have it themselves. Or else they are cooking just for Krishna and they will just be completely detached from what it tastes like for themselves. So there are various levels, but ultimately it is making your activities subservient to the activities serving the Lord. And that's what subservient is. Your second is that Is that clear? Or
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
now your second question is, what was the question?
To engraft the ashram, the whole
So
family with this.
there's the one beautiful analogy Prabhupada has given, which will act as a motivation for us. Till such time, aeroplane is anchored and it is parked on the aerodrome. The passengers in the aeroplane can ask for help, and there's a lot of help that can come from the land. The moment aeroplane takes off, then there's no help available. They're at the mercy of the pilot, and they're in the air. If anything goes wrong, that's it. Similarly, when such time we are in this body, we can take help. But as soon as the soul leaves the body, there's nothing in our hands. Everybody has to fly their own aeroplane. There is no relationship with those who we were with in our bodies. There is no such recognitions. There is nothing. All that we are taking is our consciousness along with the soul and our desires, and our next body is designed as per our consciousness. Therefore, individually, everybody is responsible for their own destiny individually, recognizing that after I leave the body, there's nobody going to be there. And it is between me and my karma that I have done, and mercy of the Lord and my spiritual master, and all the services that we have rendered. Now, having this in our mind somewhere anchored, because that should work as a motivation factor for us, that should work as the foundation of all decision making. We can act as if we are not devotee if we are stuck into non-devotee circle. But inside, we are constantly praying to the Lord. If we are unable to influence others, at least be constantly in our heart praying to the Lord for the mercy, for His mercy, constantly for us and for others. So that's one thing. It may not be very practical, but sometimes Prabhupada has given an example of a paramour. The devotees, they are like paramour. They're living, the lady is living with her husband, but she's in love with someone else. And she's very, very dexterous in hiding her feelings, in hiding that she loves someone else. And she never lets her husband know about it in any situation. So sometimes, if devotees are stuck in difficult situations where other family members are not favorable, office people are not favorable, society is not favorable, it is best that we perform our devotional service within our heart. We perform our devotional service in such a way that at least Lord can acknowledge our devotional service. Devotees can acknowledge, others don't, it's okay. It is not possible, practical, it's not in our hand. How people who are we related with in this body will react. Will they take to devotional service? Will they not take devotional service? What will they do? Krishna knows. And we can serve them with all our good intention. But if they don't become devotees, for example, do I break my relationship with them? What do I do? It's best that I continue to practice devotional service in my own heart. When I do that, Krishna will certainly make arrangements for us to be able to perform our devotional service without any impediments. And Krishna willing, in most cases, those who are attached to us because of our sincerity, because of the mercy of the Lord, also take up to Krishna consciousness at some point in time. If they don't take in this lifetime, they will take it sometime. So it's difficult, practically difficult to do, but this is what ought to be done. Does that give some clarity to the subject?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, it was very nice answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I've just checked the chat. There's no question here. I believe that it's time to leave now. I want to thank all of you, and I want to pay my obeisances to all of you. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuve patitanam
Patitanam Pramavebhyo
vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha
Hare
Anapakoti
Krishna.
Vaishnava Ki
Ki
Jai
Ki
jai.
Jai.
Jai
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna
Thank you, Prabhuji,
Hari
for
Bol.
this.
I'm honey.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hari
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
everybody.